we do this thing where so much of life, so much of sports is not just about what you achieve. A lot of it is about what you have achieved and what the expectations are. I think most of us thought Tom Brady would work on some level in Tampa. I mean, let's just be honest. Tampa was a whisker away from making the playoffs last year, and their quarterback had 30 interceptions. 30! So the thought was, you tinker a little bit with the offensive line, you continue to develop the defense, you add in Tom Brady, and you're going to be better, right? That's a reasonable thing to think. Now, the Buccaneers have looked really good the last 2 weeks. They lit up the Raiders, and what was supposed to be a Sunday night game became a Sunday afternoon game. They beat up, after falling behind 10-0, they beat up on the Green Bay Packers, handing them their only loss of the season. So what do? Because of the expectations, because of the disappointing start with the Saints, because it's Tom Brady, we have conversations like this one from Marcus Spears on Get Up, where Marcus Spears says Tom Brady is the MVP. Colin Cowherd, who precedes my show, Tom Brady is the MVP. Yahoo Sports, Brady is incredibly in the MVP race. Okay, we need to breathe a little bit. We need to inhale. We need to exhale. Tom Brady against the Raiders and Chargers, okay, 2 of the last 3 games, 9 touchdowns. Tom Brady against the 5 other opponents, 9 touchdowns. Now, it's fine to put, look, that's how anybody's stats are, that you have good games, you have bad games, you have games in which the defense dictates you got to take shots downfield, you have games in which you got to hand the football off, that's fine. But the idea that Tom Brady has really 2 very good games against the Raiders team that didn't know if they were going to play, against the Chargers team, which I love, but they're without Derwin James. And for that game, they were without 10 starters due to injury and COVID. 10. Can we pump the brakes on the Tom Brady is the MVP? Look, last year they had a quarterback that threw for 5,000 yards, who's the 3rd-string quarterback in New Orleans. So it's obvious that there is weaponry there to throw to, and they've made that weaponry better. What does an MVP, the most valuable player? Now, if you want to tell me, and this is the LeBron James, the rising tide lifts all ships because he's so good, because his reputation is so good, because he works so hard, everybody else is doing better, okay. But if you want to tell me that he's the single best player in the league, or he's doing the most with the least in the league, the answer is no, he's not. There is no calculation that you can make that tells me that Tom Brady is doing the most with the least. I mean, dude, look back to last year and you tell me. Right? Last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they started out the year with a huge win. Kind of the opposite of this year, right? That's really kind of what it is. Last year, the Buccaneers, they ended up at 7-9 on the season. Last year, the Buccaneers had Jameis Winston, who, as I said, threw for 5,000 yards. They lost to the San Francisco 49ers, who went to the Super Bowl and lost. They beat the Carolina Panthers. They lost to the Giants. They beat the Rams. There were some ups. There were some downs. They went through a stretch where they won 5 out of 6 games. During that stretch, they beat the Arizona Cardinals. They beat the Detroit Lions on the road. They beat the Atlanta Falcons on the road, who were red hot at the time. Like, they were playing some really good football. They have good football in them. But if you took Tom Brady off of this team and you put Jameis Winston back on this team, it stands to reason they'd probably be right around that 7-9 and 8-8 mark. What is the most valuable player? We've seen what happens when Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. The Green Bay Packers have no chance. We've seen what happens. We haven't seen what happens if Russell Wilson gets hurt, but the idea is they would have no chance. And oh yeah, by the way, like, we've seen the difference between when Lamar Jackson became the quarterback, and I'm not a huge Lamar Jackson guy in terms of all time. Even you go to the Kansas City Chiefs last year and you can tell me that they were relatively successful when they didn't have Pat Mahomes. The idea that Brady is what Mahomes is kind of laughable because he's had 2 explosive games. He's played 3 teams with above 500 records, and their team is 1-2. There is no statistical performance that shows you there aren't honestly the wins and losses. The team is already pretty well constructed. There is a path, or there is at least a blueprint of what they would look like if you didn't have them. Granted, would not be considered maybe the best team in the NFL. But the idea that Tom Brady has gone from does he have anything in the tank to he's the MVP, kind of laughable right now. I love Tom Brady. I think he's terrific. I think he's been terrific for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But the idea that he's the MVP because they've won a couple of games and he threw 9 touchdown passes against the Chargers and the Raiders, 2 teams that probably don't make the playoffs, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. Compare that to Pat Mahomes, who takes on the Baltimore Ravens, who were widely considered at the time the best team in football, a dominating defense, and lights them up. Who do you think's been better? Right? Who's better? Yes, Aaron Rodgers on that day was bad. Also, by the way, proves his value. If he doesn't play at a high level, the Green Bay Packers aren't a very good football team. And we all know what the Seattle Seahawks are. They live and die by Russell Wilson. The only time they lose a game is when Russell Wilson throws 3 interceptions. I think maybe the strongest point you can make in Tom Brady not being the MVP in terms of his play on the football field is his 2 best games statistically, they beat bad teams. When they beat the Green Bay Packers, he was fine. You just have to lose the game because he's not the most valuable player. He's not the only reason that they win. So this is not Gottlieb hating on Tom Brady. This is just me going, can we slow down? Right? He went from being a mid to low mid-pack quarterback in the NFL to, you know what, maybe he's still a top 10 quarterback in this league. Tom Brady's had a great career. He's a good player. The questions are about what he does in the second half of the season when he gets tired and what could he do with a bad roster? What could he do? Like, people are down on Matt Stafford because Matt Stafford doesn't win. Like, dude, Matt Stafford balled out. Carson Wentz has ball. How do you think he would look with 4 backup or third string offensive linemen like Carson Wentz has been dealing with and all backup and practice squad wide receivers? So I'm not telling you that the Buccaneers aren't awesome. They are. I'm not telling you that Tom Brady isn't playing better football. He is. And I'm not telling you that he hasn't had an incredible, the most successful modern day football career. He has. But he's playing with a loaded roster, tremendous defensive front, good coordinators on both sides. And he hasn't been the cause of their biggest wins.